For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Shannon. Ryhove. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymond Suttner joins me to discuss the need for active citizenry for democratic rule. Welcome.
Thank you.
Raymond, can you tell us why you're so preoccupied with civic power and powerlessness?
It's because when I have conversations with ordinary people, there is a sense that people have that they are powerless or helpless in the face of a lot of things that they don't agree with. They feel that the way things are going in the country is not how they would like it to be, and they don't feel that there's anything that they can do about it. Now, this comprises more than one category. There are people who were involved in various anti-apartheid efforts, and they had hoped for a democratic outcome which is different from what we have at the moment. Now, these people some of them feel very betrayed, or they feel that it is something which they never imagined at all, what is happening at the moment. Then there are others who always knew that things would not work out, and that's why they had no part in the struggle, because in a sense for some people the fact that things are going wrong vindicates their having been inactive, because for them there was something criminal in the struggle. They don't want to put it quite that way, but it had a rotten core. Now that rotten core is now taking over. But at the same time, they don't want the country to go to the dogs, as they say. So they're very unhappy about the corruption, about the violence, about all of these things. So that crowd also feels a sense of powerlessness, unless they are big business, who I think has got some powers which they could use to influence the direction of things, which I don't think they are using enough. There are a number of other categories of people who feel that there isn't a space in between the elections. In elections, you go and vote, but even if you do vote, it's not clear that what you vote for turns out to be what is done in Parliament. So I've always been, or not always, but let's say from at least the 1980s, I believed that politics is an everyday activity for the citizens, and that we should be involved, and we are involved in some ways, the civic activities that we engage in, if we are involved in community policing or other activities. Let's say there are a range of these activities that can join people together in their daily lives. But I think overhanging all of this is a sense of the corruption from top to bottom, and a sense that this needs to be remedied, but there's nothing that they can do about it. So I have been concerned with arguing that we need organizational forms for embracing people who want to contribute towards the well-being of the country, making it realize the promise that we all felt it had in 1994, and we need to find ways of doing this. And that is why I have called for united action on a broad front.
Now, in calling for united civic action, you distinguish between building unity around a specific doctrine and unity around issues that affect people in a practical, everyday way. Can you elaborate on that?
You see, the significance of that distinction determines how broad this unity will be. Now, if I say that I belong to the Unitarian Church or the Seventh-day Adventist, and I invite everyone to stand behind these principles, very few people are going to stand behind it, because what you're making is the basis of unity is a particular belief in doctrine. Mm-hmm. Now, in the same way, if people say we've had 20 years of neoliberalism and the basis for unity must be revolutionary Marxist-Leninism. Now, straight away, there are a lot of people who have not, don't agree with that, mm-hmm. but it's a lot of people who've not even been exposed to that. But they are living without a roof over their heads. They are unemployed. Mm-hmm. They are without land. They are subject to gender-based or sexual violence. They are suffering in a range of different ways, which does not necessarily get encompassed by a doctrine where there's liberalism, communism, social democracy. They really want to unite around remedying unlawful actions against themselves. And there are other people who have other reasons for not agreeing with illegality, with malgovernance, with corruption and so forth. Business, for example, needs to operate in an atmosphere where there is a level of certainty. When you know that to have a deal, you will have an agreement between the two parties whereby you pay X. Mm-hmm. With corruption, you pay X plus something else under the table. So business starts to cost more, and there's a level of uncertainty, because when you do, if you have to do that, you yourself are the corrupt, you know, who is the corrupt party? Both parties. It takes two parties to be corrupt. And so it's also in the interest of business of a range of sizes to have regularized ways of doing business and an atmosphere of violence. The fact that in Ryhove for 3 days now you've had violence. You have situations, countless situations of protests over basic utilities, and it does appear that this relates to misappropriation of public funds. Now, the other day, I don't have the reference with me, but one of the newspapers said, I've mentioned before, that only the municipalities of only 5 provinces had clean audits. 5 provinces had no municipalities with clean audits. No clean audits at all in 5 provinces.
That's the majority.
Yeah, that's, well, and it may have been 4, but it's 4 or 5. But there's another statistic that only about 10% at most of all municipalities in the country have got clean audits. So what it means is that the norm is irregularity. Now, when the norm is irregularity, how do you do business under a metro that cannot account for billions of rands? It's the whole situation is one that is unconducive to a range of activities, a sense of safety as a citizen, that you will not be stopped by a policeman who asks you for a bribe, a sense of irregularity which costs more to do business, but also is bad for investment. People are not going to invest in a situation where there's not transparency. So that is, my argument then is that you don't give a label like socialism or liberalism or social democracy to these problems. You try to unite people who all share a desire for constitutional government and proper procedures.
Thank you very much for your insight.
Thanks a lot.
That was Professor Raymond Suttner speaking to Creamer Media's Polity about active citizenry and democracy.